you send me a link to this meeting? Members of the public are watching live stream. Okay, all right. There are four of you. there's a special meeting. Happy
Move adoption of the agenda. Yes.
Can people hear me? Is this better? Great.
I can hear you, Celia.
Okay. Commissioner Villanueva,
Yes.
motion is passed. So now we'll do the overview.
So this is a special meeting of the commission, the four legislatively appointed commissioners. The purpose of interview and the commission staff solicited applications statewide. We received over of those 20 staff. 7 those up. We do the selection procedure for this differently than the other. So what will happen? You'll interview each of the 7 about 20, less than questions. Question? I recommend. Question?
Excuse me.
Every applicant 5 questions.
Judy has a question.
Excuse me. I do have a question. I'm getting very, very, very sketchy audio.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Better.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Judy, that's my fault. It's my microphone was not on. Okay, so what I recommend is that you ask each of the 7 applicants the same set of questions, and I've provided you a set of sample questions, and you know, I recommend that you pick maybe 5 of those sample questions and ask each interviewee the same set of questions. After you've conducted all of the interviews, you will not retreat into closed session to deliberate and make a choice. That would violate the Open Meetings Act. So what we do when the commission selects appointments, either to the State Ethics Commission or the Citizen Redistricting Commission, what you'll do is you'll just note on your preference sheet your preferences, 1 through 7 of the 7 applicants that you interview, or and then when you finished noting your preferences, you'll hand your preference ranking to me. I'll aggregate each commissioner's preferences, and the applicant with the lowest score will be appointed to the commission, and I'll announce the name of that person. In the event of a tie, the applicant with the greatest number of number 1 values will be chosen. And if there's a tie of applicants that have received the same number of number 1 votes, then we'll look to number 2 votes. And if that's still a tie, I'll let you know, and then you can determine a procedure from there. But likely that won't happen. So that's how the State Ethics Commission makes its appointments when it's called to do so, either to the State Ethics Commission or to the Citizen Redistricting Commission. We've done this a few times, and I'm happy to answer any questions before we commence with the interviews.
Jeremy, just to clarify, so we're playing golf here today. The lowest score wins, ranking from number 1. And shouldn't we technically, since we did get a couple of other applicants who declined to state independence, and the term of Commissioner Baker expired, so we do have that position, which he has reapplied for, to confirm. And so I'd like to move adoption of Commissioner Baker as another 4-year term as a legislatively appointed commissioner.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Buston. Chair, you have a motion.
I do. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion of this motion? Hearing none, I'll take the vote. Commissioner Bluestone,
Yes.
Commissioner McMillan, Commissioner Villanueva,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So Commissioner Baker is reappointed.
So the decline to state minor party position has been filled for another 4-year term, and I'll leave it to you to focus on the Republican position.
Thank you.
Then I have a question. Somewhere in the information, the commissioners or the potential commissioners that are being interviewed are not going to be part of this meeting. They won't hear the interviews of each other. So
Chair and Commissioners, that's another aspect of our interview process. So Justice Klingman is here in the audience, but
Yes.
when you interview the first applicant, Mr. Bevington, I'll ask Justice Klingman to step out. And then when it's his turn, we'll ask him to step in. And then Jane will do the same thing as she manages the virtual interviews. Folks won't be invited into the room until it's their time to interview. And I've asked them not to watch the YouTube live stream of the interviews, and we'll just take them on their word.
okay. Then the other item I think we need to look at are the questions that we're going to ask. And the questions are on the page marked section 5 of the sheet that we got today. So as far as questions are concerned, what is the pleasure of the commissioners?
We could do this a number of different ways. In looking over the questions, it seems to me that 4 seem to be the most important that I would recommend. And if we are 4 of us, we could just consider each take one.
That sounds like a good idea.
But what I was going to recommend was the very first question. Can you please describe your professional background and how it has prepared you for a role in the second question I would recommend is the 4th one down. What motivates you to serve on the State Ethics Commission? Third question would be the one above that. Can you provide an example of a time when you had to handle an ethical dilemma in your professional career and address it? And then the last question, recommend the last one. What do you believe are the core principles of ethical public service? The relationship between those core principles. We can ask others, of course, but I was just going to recommend those. Okay.
I agree with those 4.
Then Commissioner McMillan, you're looking.
I'd rather do it as an additional one. If we're only going to ask 4, I still prefer to ask that last one rather than what steps you. We can ask all 7 if there's time.
Well, just a second. Aren't we supposed to ask the applicants the same questions?
Yeah, it'd be
So-
best if you pick.
So what happens if we do run out of time? Then they don't get the last questions?
There's no time. You ask your questions, they answer, and then we'll go to the next one, and we can inform the folks in the list that
That they need to wait?
that they need to wait.
Okay.
And if they're unwilling to wait, then
Okay, so Commissioner McMillan, you'd like to add a 5th question. What steps would you take to remain unbiased in your role as commissioner? Okay, do we all agree to those 5 questions?
Fine.
Hearing no objection. Okay, then should we assign these questions to people? Okay, who? Organization? Yeah. So who would like to take number 1? Can you please describe your professional background?
Well, since you're chairing the meeting, maybe it makes
I'll
more
s-
sense.
I'll start with that one. Okay, the second question, what motivates you to serve on the State Ethics Commission?
I'll do that.
Okay. Judy. 3, can you provide an example of a time when you had to handle an ethical dilemma in your professional career? How would you address it?
You can do that if you want.
Okay. We'll do 3. 4, what do you believe are the core principles of ethical behavior in public service? And how do you view the relationship, that particular question? You want me to go back to me on that question, and the
Sure.
last question will be yours, Commissioner McMillan? That's the one you like? Okay, we'll do that. Okay. So I've got me for the first question, Judy for the second question, Stuart for the third question, me for the fourth question, and Terry for the fifth question. So I think we have our procedure organization taken care of.
Yeah.
And
They appear in a different order on my sheet, so will I be second then?
you're still second. What the question you have is the fourth one down,
Correct.
right?
But the third question down is assigned to someone.
The third question is assigned to Stuart. What I did is I renumbered them.
Oh, okay. So then I will ask third.
You will
Yeah.
ask, yeah, in fact, you're the 1, 2, 3. You're the fourth question down, but you will ask it as the second question.
Okay, that's what I asked initially. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mhm. And the third question, it's the third one down, and you'll ask it third. The fourth question is the last question. I'll answer it. I'll ask it fourth. And the last question is 1, 2, 6, the sixth question down. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody ready? Okay.
So we're only about 6 minutes late.
That's not bad.
I prefer that clock.
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Bevington. Can you hear me? Okay.
It looks like you're muted. If you can navigate to a little microphone on your screen and click that so that we can hear you.
Probably in the lower left, Mr. Bevington, on your screen. There you go.
How's that?
Yes, I think we're good.
Okay, great.
All right, I'll give you another welcome and thank you very much for applying for this position on the New Mexico State Ethics Commission. There are 4 of us who are going to be making this decision today. We have Commissioner Bluestone, Commissioner McMillan, and Commissioner Villanueva by Zoom. And what we're going to do is we're going to be asking you 5 questions this morning. And I will start, each one of us will take a question or 2. And I will start with the first question. The first question is, can you please describe your professional background and how it has prepared you for the role on the State Ethics Commission?
Well, certainly. My professional background is I'm a retired Sandia National Laboratories project manager. I held a very responsible position at Sandia. I spent 31 and a half years there. The last decade of my career, I was invited to join international programs, so I volunteered to do that. International programs works all over the world. I happen to be assigned to Russia and 28 other foreign countries. When you're working abroad, you're in a very sensitive position. You're representing not only Sandia, but also the U.S. government. And people that work in these positions are not chosen lightly. You have to be very careful, very astute, very pensive to be able to navigate working in these foreign countries. Russia happens to be hostile. We are not, the Russians are not friends of our country. And so you have to be very professional. You have to be on your toes at all times. The Russians are always looking to ensnare an American in some kind of misstep. I worked, as I said, in Russia off and on for a decade. I never had any problems, and the reason being, I always tried to treat people exactly as I would like to be treated, with the same respect, the same consideration. I was there to do a job, and that was the only reason I was there. So I think that certainly prepared me. After I retired from Sandia, I was a manager at the New Mexico School of Mines in Socorro, New Mexico Tech, working with another group of people. I have worked for the Pueblo of Isleta. I worked with a very diverse group of people. And again, the key, in my humble opinion, to be successful is to be professional, to do your job and to treat people like you would like to be treated.
Thank you. Now, Commissioner Villanueva will ask our second question.
Good morning, Mr. Bevington. Will you kindly let us know what motivates you to serve on the State Ethics Commission?
I have always been a volunteer. That's just the way that I was raised. That was the environment that I grew up in. 6 days after I graduated from high school, I was in Air Force boot camp. I spent the next 5 years on active duty in the Air Force, including a tour of duty in Southeast Asia during Vietnam. After that, I served a couple years in the inactive reserves, a year in the New Mexico Air National Guard. At Sandia, I volunteered to become what is Sandia termed a SIAD. SIAD is a science advisor, and the intent was to take engineers and managers and place them in disadvantaged schools, economically disadvantaged schools, to try and complement what professional teachers were doing. So I taught science one morning a week for 5 years. And I can tell you it was very rewarding, but it is a tremendously high energy job. And I would not want to do that for a living. I have great respect for teachers, but like I say, it was very rewarding. I commanded a Civil Air Patrol cadet squadron at the same period of time. Civil Air Patrol is the official auxiliary to the U.S. Air Force. And so I did that. I've been a Civil Air Patrol volunteer, search and rescue, smoke spotter, and drug interdiction missions for the last 30 years. So it is in my nature to volunteer. I want to continue to volunteer. I happen to see this, I think, in the newspaper. And so that's why I was interested. I feel I'm a very ethical, responsible person. And I think that people, you know, that have had the privilege of an education, New Mexico is a very poor state. That's just the reality. Have an obligation to give back to the community whenever they can, in whatever fashion that they can. This happens to be one of the ways that I can give back.
Thank you, Mr. Bevington.
Okay, our third question today will be presented by Commissioner Bluestone.
Thank you.
Sure.
And thank you, Mr. Bevington, for applying. Background is certainly impressive. Question I'd like to ask is if you could provide an example of a time when you had to handle an ethical dilemma in your professional career, and how did you handle it?
As I mentioned earlier, I was a project manager for over 30 years. Project management means conflicts. That's just the nature of the work. It goes with the work. And so I've had many professional dilemmas, you know, where it requires intervention. And I think that the worst possible thing one of my jobs as a project manager was also to mentor young engineers that were going to be project managers. Oftentimes, somebody that is beginning that profession will see that there's a problem developing, but they hope it'll go away somehow. They hope that somehow it's going to resolve itself. And in my experience, that never happens. So you have to be prepared to intervene. You have to be on top of projects. You have to be on top of what's going on, and you have to be prepared to take action. So many cases will have a situation where there's a dispute over performance issues. All right, you know, what do you do? Well, you've got to be honest with people. You know, I've had 15 employees under me and an equal number of contractors. If somebody is not performing, you have to have the courage to address that situation. You have to document everything, and you have to be honest with people and say, look, you know, in private, of course, not ever in public, say, look, things are just not working out. You know, I have talked to you in the past, you know, your performance has not improved. What are we going to do? In Russia, an interesting part about working there is the Russians insisted on providing interpreters. All right. We have Americans that speak Russian fluently. We have Americans that were born in Russia that are native Russian speakers. But the Russians, again, want to try and control teams going there as much as possible. Our 3 interpreters were all extremely attractive young ladies. One just coincidentally happened to be blonde, one happened to be a brunette, one happened to be a redhead. You know, so you're talking about an intelligence aspect to working in, you know, in these situations, which interjects another level of complexities. And what do you do? How do you manage, you know, these types of situations? Again, professionalism, doing your job, being clear to people, spelling out your expectations, even if it means in writing, then do so. The same thing at New Mexico Tech and Socorro. Socorro is a very small community. It's very tightly knit. It's a great little community, but they are very harsh with their employees at New Mexico Tech. You know, unduly harsh. If a new employee is late 3 times, they're dismissed. No questions asked. And I don't agree with that. I am very, I would say, by the book. I do agree with that completely, but I also agree that we are human beings. We are not machines, and there has to be some level of wisdom and perhaps maturity that goes into these decision making. You know, that we have to be forthright, but we also have to be compassionate at times, and that's the way that I think it should be.
Thank you, sir.
And I think your answer leads into my next question. What do you believe are the core principles of ethical behavior in public service? And how do you view the relationship between those core principles and the law the commission is charged to interpret and enforce?
Well, that's a difficult question, and that's a very appropriate question, because as everyone knows, you know, or at least in my humble opinion, I think America's at a crossroads. You know, we have so much divisiveness, so much anger, so much lack of decorum, lack of common courtesy, lack of lack of everything, you know, and that applies to public servants, that applies to government officials that are attacking each other relentlessly. You know, obviously, former President Trump was almost assassinated. I mean, we've had riots on college campuses, riots in the Capitol, Washington, D.C., where monuments have been defaced. And I really think that, you know, the core principles, as far as I'm concerned, are respect for each other, a willingness to listen to the other side, common courtesy, uh, you know, like I say, treating people like you would like to be treated. Yes, we don't agree, and that's not a bad thing. You know, when I worked abroad, I think I came back with a more global way of thinking about things, which has influenced me certainly. A career will do that to you, but I wonder where our country is going. And like I say, in my opinion, we need to do something about it. And I think the Ethics Commission has a very important job, because do public servants, do politicians make mistakes, missteps? Of course. You know, again, we are all human beings, but I assume that the Ethics Commission has a responsibility to provide some oversight, some guidance, some possibly even some correction when it's warranted. But never in my lifetime have I seen so much animosity and just complete chaos, you know, and I think that we as a nation, not just the Ethics Commission, not just me, not just, I think everybody is going to have to participate in that and decide, are we going to be, you know, a nation of law and order? Are we going to listen to each other? Are we going to be responsible enough to consider the other side? Are we just going to, you know, is this the new normal? I certainly hope not. I mean, this is not what I want. This is not what I want for my children and my grandchildren. And so, like I say, I think everyone has a responsibility and an obligation to step up to the plate and say, look, you know, we need a course correction. We need to get back together to be responsible citizens and to, you know, conduct ourselves like human beings, like professional human beings. So I have pondered that a lot recently, because again, every morning when I read the newspaper, it seems like it's one crisis after another. And so my opinion is that we have swung too far to the left, you know, that we have become so liberal that people don't feel that there's any responsibility or obligations anymore. So I hope that we find some common ground where we can work better together, because I just see, you know, infighting every single day, which, you know, it's not a good thing. You know, it's not the country that I fought for. It's not my country, you know, and we need to do something about it collectively.
Thank you. And the last question will be posed by Commissioner McMillan.
Good morning, Mr. Bevington.
Yes, sir.
It's very important that the Ethics Commission conduct itself and be viewed as being nonpartisan. You'll be filling a Republican vacancy on the commission if chosen. What steps might you need to take to remain non-biased in that role?
I think that a lot of problems that we're seeing today is where people jump to conclusions. You know, they will have half the story And instead of having the whole picture, they will make a determination immediately. I see that happening in politics all the time. I see where judges have interjected their own personal feelings in their decisions and rulings that have been made. And I'm appalled by that. I think that, you know, again, I need to see every fact in front of me. I need to see everything. I need, you know, if I'm going to make a decision, I want to know everything about it. And I will not jump to conclusions, interject, you know, what I'm thinking until I've had an opportunity to think it through very clearly. I'm not one to speak first and then try and retract something that I've said. That you know benefits absolutely no one. So yes, I am a lifelong Republican. I just happen to believe in the Republican values. They are more aligned with what I believe. Have I always voted a straight Republican ticket? Absolutely not. I have voted the Democrats on many occasions when I thought that that individual was the best candidate for that particular position. And like I say, I am annoyed when I hear people say, well, you know, I just vote all Republican or I just vote all Democrat, you know, without taking the time to look at the issues, without, you know, investing the time and effort to look at the candidates. And that's just no good. You know, we need to do our homework, you know, and in any decision that I've ever made in the past, I feel honestly that I did everything that I possibly could, you know, to make the very best possible decision with the information that I had. Have they always worked out? I don't know. Maybe not. I've really not had too much feedback that I had made an error in judgment, but again, I'm human too, and I certainly could. But I'm sure that the state ethics commissioners take their roles very seriously, and I'm sure that there's very serious debate about whatever issues that are brought before the commission, and that's the way that it should be. You know, this making a quick decision is no good. You know, it's you're apt to make a serious mistake. So that's the way that I have always tried to conduct myself, both in the military and at Sandia, at New Mexico Tech, and wherever I happen to be. You know, and you know, I'm not a young man. I mean, I think I have some maturity. I think I have perhaps some wisdom that comes with age. And you're not all wound up. You're not, you know, gonna just go flying off the handle. You know, that again, that's no good. You need to think seriously and carefully and contemplate these issues before you make a decision.
Okay, well, Mr. Bevington, thank you very much. First, for applying, for your interest, and for taking the time to be here today and answering our questions. What
Well,
will happen is after the meeting is over, we will go ahead and do our scorecards, and Mr. Ferris, you will contact him and let him know. So again, thank you for your interest.
all right. Well, thank you again, Commission. I guess I just sign out, so that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Bye now. Again, thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Judge Klingman. I need to let the commissioners know that I have known Judge Klingman for probably 25 years now. He was on the district bench when I was on the appellate court, and we served on committees and things of that sort. So again, welcome today, and thank you for your interest in a position on the New Mexico State Ethics Commission. What we're going to do is, for each one of us are, there's 4 commissioners that are going to make this decision, and we have 5 questions. So we're going to ask you these questions in order and let you tell us what your thoughts are. The first question is my question. Can you please describe your professional background and how it has prepared you for a role on the State Ethics Commission? Okay, make sure your microphone turned on? Green? Okay, good.
Well, my name is Gary Klingman. I went to law school at Texas Tech. And when I graduated, I went to work for the Maddox law firm in Hobbs. That's where I lived. I was in private practice for 12 years and then went on the district bench appointed by Governor Johnson in 1997, stood retention, et cetera. Ended my career with an 8-month tenure on the Supreme Court. Being a judge, a district judge, in a small town in rural New Mexico is an awakening experience, to say the least. People know who you are, know your business, they know where you live. You're not an anonymous face in the newspaper or anything of that nature. You learn how to keep your mouth shut, how to keep your ears open. You learn how to avoid situations that could become dicey. In other words, you don't go to places in our community. The country club was the hot place where all the business people hung out and wannabe business people hung out. And I never went. Not that I'm adverse to having a steak and a beer or anything of that nature. It's just that you put yourself in a bad position when you start becoming too friendly with your constituent. I think, it's funny when you talk about ethics. I went through the statute. Ethics is not defined in the statute. And so, what is it? What does ethics mean? And basically, I came up with, it's a set of guiding principles that you apply to certain situations. As a judge, you are making ethical decisions all day, every day. I did that for 21 years. Maybe something as simple as you go into a restaurant to have your lunch and you see a lawyer that you've known for years and, hey, Judge, come on over and sit down, we'll have lunch. Everybody in that room knows that's a lawyer, you're the judge, you've got that person's cases in front of you. And one of those cases may be mine, and I know for a fact that's what you're talking about. That's the way people think. So you just, you have to isolate yourself. And then that's difficult, especially when you have children, have a spouse, etc. But you just have to watch your P's and Q's just like you do in any other vocation or position. I hope that's answered your question.
Yes, it has. And now we go on to our second question by Commissioner Villanueva.
Good morning, Justice. How are you?
Well, how do I see you?
Oh, I'm on the screen. Do you have a screen there? Justice, I have to say that I served with you on at least one judicial selection committee for the 5th Judicial District. So that's how I'm familiar with you in Carlsbad. My question for you is, what motivates you to serve on the State Ethics Commission?
You know, I think Richard Nixon said it. Americans deserve to know whether their president. I don't know whether he was. Okay. People place a huge amount of trust and property rights at the disposal of the, and they deserve to have accountability in those. That's I get a kick out of listening. Political talk about there's so many $1 million in 2 months. Not their money. And we as citizens, you as citizens, studying has rights for their activity. Same way we put it trust, and we could be paid or return trust. Actually create our business their own institution. What makes me want to do this? It's real easy. Go have public. I think this good, so motivated. Hey back to, in other words, get involved. This is a mission that I first I thought, this, what a great way to serve the citizens of the state. Such a, this commission doesn't cut in very strict schedule because not, for example, judiciary, their own. With works very well. This committee gives citizens the opportunity to have similar properly functioning watchdog.
Thank you. Yes. The third question is going to be posed by Commissioner Bluestone. Am I right here?
First, I want to thank you, Judge, for applying. Background, certainly impressive. Appreciate interest in serving.
Thank you.
The question I am going to ask is, if you could provide us an example of an ethical dilemma that you have faced over the years and how you handled it.
Well, they always say that the most important ethical question that you're ever faced with is your first. Because at that juncture, you're going to make a choice. You're going to be an ethical person, an ethical lawyer, an ethical judge, or you're not. Once that twig is bent, it's hard for it to grow straight again. When I was in private practice, we represented our county commission in an effort to get a prison facility located in our county, which we were successful. But I will never forget, my law firm sent me to these commission meetings and to meet with our county commission. And the first words out of the commissioner's mouth invariably is, how do we get around the Open Meetings Act on this? This was back in the 90s, so things weren't quite as refined as they are. But my answer to him is, you know, Mr. Chairman, we don't. What do you mean we don't? Said there's no exception. We can't. Well, we can't talk about this in front of everybody. And I said, yeah, we can. And we should. I had a public defender who was operating side private practice. I was chief judge at the time in my district. And I heard about this and I brought him in and I said, you know, you can't do that. It's against the laws of the public defender's office for you to be a full-time public defender and have a private practice. His question, or his response was, well, who's going to squawk? I said, well, I am. Do I need to go to the district attorney's, or do you close this side gig you've got going? Which he did. We had a situation before I was chief judge, but I was a judge, where another judge and an individual attorney had gone to high school, junior high, grade school together, small town. And the attorney's wife got busted for selling dope. And these two, the attorney and the judge, were quite friendly, and I got wind through my bailiff that they had a series of meetings whereby they resolved how they were going to handle this spouse's legal problems without the benefit of the DA being there or anything else. I went to the chief judge of our district, Jay Forbes was chief, and told him what I think's going on. We got a judge fixing the case over here. He called the judge in and they agreed that he'd been compromised, and he agreed to get out of the case, which he did. And then the attorney convinced him to unrecuse himself and get back in the case. Long story short, Judge Forbes and I ended up getting sued in federal court over it. And ultimately it was found in our favor. We had a magistrate in Artesia who was trying to justify the existence of his court and show that they were collecting more fines and penalties, assessments than anybody else in the state. And so he was putting people in jail, and predominantly people of color, and having them lay out their fine at the old statutory rate of $5 a day. Whereas now it's 8 times the minimum wage, whatever that is. And so I decided, you know, I'm the chief judge, I've got to do something. So I called him in, sat him down. You can't do that. Cannot do that. Against the law. Quit. And I thought things were going great till about a month later, he got the same complaint. He was doing it again. Only this time he filed a complaint against me in judicial standards. And the Attorney General represented him. I had to represent myself in a writ before the Supreme Court. And the magistrate lost his job. N. Ray Williams reported. But being a judge, I mean, you see ethical things. For example, I mean, the statistics are clear that people of color and minorities tend to do more jail time than people that are white. And I think that as a judge, I know I did it, and I think most judges do. Every now and then you kind of look back and, am I being fair to everybody? If this fellow is getting, jail time on this, is this fellow getting the same amount? In other words, a lot of self monitoring. We have a thing or had a thing in judiciary where we were periodically reviewed by lawyers, cops, judges, everybody, social workers, and we were graded as to how we did. I never really did particularly well, didn't ever do particularly bad in those things. I kind of was in the middle. But the one thing that I thought was very, very beneficial is it made you look at yourself. It made you stop, think, what am I doing? People think that my office has a flaw. Why would they think that? People like I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Okay. Why is that important? In other words, you got to evaluate yourself. So
Thank you for your answer.
there you go.
The next question goes back to me. Sort of a long question. What do you believe are the core principles of ethical behavior in public service? And how do you view the relationship between those core principles and the law the commission is charged to interpret and enforce?
Well, first of all, I'm not a fan of situational ethics. I think that there are ethical principles that govern. And just because it makes it easier to do it a particular way doesn't necessarily make it ethical. So what are ethics? I mean, that's the whole thing. Again, I looked for a definition. And really, when I taught in my resume, I noted that I used to teach new judge training years. I would basically tell new judges that if you think something may be unethical, chances are it probably is. And if you have a question, ask somebody. And the person that I would say is, could you sit down in front of your mother and explain what you just did? Because if you can do that, then you've probably got a pretty reasonable justification, ethical reason for why what you did. I hope that as part of being a member of this commission, that training is afforded as to what are ethics, what are ethical dilemmas that are presented, across the country. There's nothing unique about them. How are those resolved? And from that, can you distill principles? But I think that you have to you have to have a broad application of what, not just what an individual thinks is ethical, what society. Again, it's not legislature's money. it's not their trust, it's our trust. And a fiduciary relationship is a fiduciary relationship, whether it's over a nickel or whether it's over $1 million.
Thank you.
I hope I touched all,
Yeah,
all points.
It's a,
What a
it's,
few.
it's a long question. I agree. Our last question is going to be posed by Commissioner Millen.
Judge Klingman, it's very important that the Ethics Commission conduct itself in a nonpartisan fashion and be viewed as doing such. You would be filling a Republican vacancy on the commission. Are there any steps that you might need to take to remain non-biased in your work on the commission?
I don't think so. Steps, but I think you've got to be aware. I think you've got to be aware that a large segment of the community, they view that the fix is in. You know, the fix is always in. Somehow, some way, the fix is in. And I think that you have to conduct your personal life in such a manner that you're not creating that illusion or that appearance. One good thing about living where I live in Hobbs, we're 5 hours away from the seat of government. We don't really get a lot of the interaction that people in Albuquerque and Santa Fe and Las Cruces do with government and governmental entities and governmental officials, etc. But you can have a crooked county commissioner just in Hobbs, just like you can in San Juan. And I think that another thing you've got to do is other than who you associate with, I think you need to learn how to hopefully keep your mouth shut. You know, you just don't talk about the committees or commission's business. My wife, I was married to my wife for 42 years. She passed away several years ago, but she loved it that I did not discuss business at home. She absolutely loved it because everybody thought she knew all the stuff. And she didn't. And after a while, they realized she didn't, so they quit asking her about it. But no, we'd talk about the funny stuff. If, you know, something crazy happened, you know, aren't going to believe this. But as far as personalities, legal issues, importance of a case, that kind of stuff, we just never talked about it. The business of the commission stays with the commission. The business of Gary Klingman stays with Gary. I think, and then this is a rather touchy thing, being a Republican or being a Democrat. I think that you've got to make sure and ask yourself, examine yourself, am I voting this way based on the facts, based on the law, based on the way this should be, what's the right thing? Or am I thinking, you know, that governor appointed me to be such and such, and I don't know if I can really go against her on this one. Just can't do that.
Thank you.
And I called you Judge Klingman, and it's Justice Klingman.
Well,
With that-
back home, it's Judge
They
Klingman.
they all call you
The only
Judge. but-
place that calls me
Okay.
Justice is up here.
Well, Judge or Justice, whatever it is, we want to thank you for your interest in being on this commission. and taking the time to be here today, because you drove all the way from Hobbs, right? And to thoughtfully answer our questions.
Well, thank you
So
very
again,
much.
thank you very much. And our executive director, Jeremy Ferris, will let you know. I mean, I guess if you want to stay, you've come this far already. But afterwards, we'll go ahead and fill out our sheets, and then we'll know who the next
Okay,
commissioner
well,
will
thank
be.
you. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
consideration. Let me explain this right here. They say that if you have knee replacement, you have about a 1 in 400 chance of developing a staph infection. And I won the lottery.
Sorry.
No.
But the doctor told me that it's not really staph, but it's sort of like staph. And I thought, well, that's great. But I should be off of this within about another 2 months. And I go to physical therapy and life's getting there.
Good luck.
Good,
Thank
yes.
you now.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning,
Morning,
everyone.
Mr. Gallegos.
Good morning.
Yes.
Good morning.
We see you on our screen, and we want to welcome you to this special commission meeting to decide who a new member of our commission will be. We want to thank you very much for your interest in applying. And what we're going to do today is we 4 commissioners are the ones who are going to be making this decision. And we have 5 questions to ask. And so we will take turns in asking our question. The first question is my question. And can you please describe your professional background and how it has prepared you for a role on the State Ethics Commission?
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to interview. I'd love to share my background. I have over 30 years of experience in public safety, all the way from law enforcement, detention, corrections, probation. And I've held several positions all the way up to I am a warden of Curry County Adult Detention Center. So vast amount of experience in that area. I'm also just completing and just returned from a mobilization in the Middle East. I've retired, set my retirement paperwork as a reservist in the United States Navy. I'm a United States Navy officer. I'm a commanding officer of security forces, and have mobilized approximately 6 to 7 times on the fight on war and terrorism. In addition to my background, also is also as a college instructor. I teach for Clovis Community College, several classes in criminal justice. I've taught criminal law. I've taught introduction to criminal justice, juvenile justice, and other various courses for the college there. I'm also a new instructor for New Mexico EDGE, which is with New Mexico State, and that is to teach courses with corrections. I'm a graduate of 2 programs that I'm proud of in the state of New Mexico. One is the local government leadership program. I graduated from there with the leadership program, and also graduated with the National Associations of Counties Leadership Academy. I do hold degrees in criminal justice. I have a master of science degree in criminal justice with the emphasis in law specialty. My undergraduate is psychology with the bachelor's, and I'm finishing up my PhD in criminal justice. As we speak right now, I'm in my final phase of my dissertation. The other thing that I've done previously as well is I served as a teen court judge for Curry County, hearing local, minimal cases for teen court in Curry County, and I volunteered to do that as well. So I have a vast amount of experience in also being a hearings judge, also in the military. I've done what we call captain's mass, and that is hearing cases that infringe upon the non-judicial punishment of sailors, and also UCMJ, United States Military Code of Justice, as well as a commanding officer. One of the areas also that I have vast amount of experience in is also investigations. So out of my 30 years of experience in the military, I was assigned to Navy Criminal Investigative Services, which is NCIS, as an agent. So I do have a lot of experiences of investigations, being a part of hearings also within the corrections and detention industry, on hearing administrative cases within the detention center. I've also sat on a lot of boards to hear employee misconduct within the county as part of one of the hearings officers. So I believe that I have a vast amount of experience coming from my educational military, and also my work experience the past 30 years of criminal justice and other entities as well. And I believe that with this, all these experiences, it prepared me to want to be a commissioner. I've studied it pretty intensely, and I believe I'd be a great asset to your team.
Thank you. Our second question is going to be posed by Commissioner Villanueva.
Good morning, Mr. Gallegos. This kind of is a follow-up to your last statement. Would you please tell us what motivates you to serve on the State Ethics Commission?
I think one of the things is to serve my communities, number one, and the other thing is to bring my background of what I've done, both governmental as well as private sector. I've worked in the state of Colorado's government. I've worked at the county level with New Mexico in both Santa Fe. I was the detention administrator, warden there in Santa Fe for about 5 years, and then been in eastern New Mexico for the last 10 years. So I believe that having that experiences in government, I do understand a lot of the 9 areas and 7 areas that you have of what you oversee and what kind of complaints would come to you. So I do have some knowledge in those areas as well.
Thank you.
Our third question is going to be posed by Commissioner Bluestone.
First, I want to thank you, Mr. Gallegos, for applying. Really appreciate your interest. Your background is certainly very impressive. Really appreciate being able to talk to you today. Your interest in serving. My question has to do with whether you could please give us an example or two of an ethical dilemma that you've faced in your career and how you handled it.
Well, with my experiences to go back to in the government entity, I also have a vast amount of experience in the procurement. So I do sit on boards. I do the scope of work of a lot of our within our detention center, going from medical, kitchen, and a lot of the capital outlay projects as well. So one of the things that an ethical dilemma is, I had a staff member give information out to a potential off of the RFP information in regard to the scope of work in RFP before it even came out. And right then and there, having that experience, we always do what's right. And see something, say something, do something. I brought it forward, and I was told to kind of stand down with it. But me being a warden in the detention center, I have those ethics as well. So I brought it forward and said, I'm not going to pass the buck or put it under the rug or not, bring it forward. So I did bring it forward, and I made it clear, what the responsibilities are when you're, serving on a board, and when it's up for an RFP in the procurement code as we speak. So what we had to do is we had to reset the button, and that entity who received information was no longer part of the RFP process, and that employee was ultimately terminated from the county. So that is an example of what I've seen in the past, and what I've done is my ethical responsibility, as a government agent, so to speak, doing the right thing is the best. So that is an example where I see where I've done that in the past.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Now we go on to question 4, which is another question that I pose, and it's a fairly complicated question. What do you believe are the core principles of ethical behavior in public service, and how do you view the relationship between those core principles and the law the commission is charged to interpret and enforce?
5 fundamental areas. I have my personal ethos, and that's accountability, responsibility, and integrity. And I've held that ever since, I've come into the military, and I've carried it over to my place of employment as that. But one of the things is that, and as it relates to you all, it would be the objectivity, and that's to be objective, to be unbiased. Professional competence is number 1. I mean, a huge thing. Confidentiality and professional behavior. You encompass all of those, you will come up with an ingredients for those areas to respond to you as well. And I believe how it intersects to you all is to promote compliance with the state laws that require the government to be ethical, number 1. Number 2, responsive to the public, and to be democratic. So I believe that, I've always had those core values as being, military, governmental, with state of Colorado, state of New Mexico, Curry County, and again in the military. And I think that encompasses of what you all are looking for. And that's somebody who can be impartial and not be prejudiced against anything that comes up or any cases that you hear.
Thank you. And our last question is going to be posed by Commissioner McMillan.
Thank you, Mr. Gales, for your application.
Thank you.
It is very important that the Ethics Commission conduct itself and be viewed by the public as nonpartisan. You would be filling a Republican vacancy on the commission. Are there any steps that you might need to take to ensure that you remain non-biased in your service on the commission?
Well, number 1, I think to be objective, and I've always said that I know it's bipartisan. We've got to work together, and that's what the ultimate goal is. We got to do the good of the state. Steps that prepared me is that I already have that integrity that I bring to the table with a bipartisan. Being a Republican, that's my affiliation of my party. But the thing is it's always doing the best thing, and it doesn't come down to whether we're blue or red. It comes down to what is the best decision, an ethical decision that we're going to make, and how well we're going to be better off getting along and moving forward as a commission and putting our affiliations aside. That's the number one thing. So we all have a lot of great ideas, but I think we're in a time right now that we've got to set all that aside and work together as unity. And I've done that coming up in the military. We've had a Republican, president, and we've had a Democratic, and I've always held myself to the same core values. Let's work together. And that's what we need to do. And I pay attention a lot. I'm always at the at the New Mexico County's affiliate there at legislative conference. I've testified in front of Congress in regard to detention, the care, custody, control, and treating people with the dignity and respect. That's what I pride myself on. So I've already taken steps, and I'm already producing it, and I've had tangible, measurable outcomes as such with my career.
Thank you.
Mr. Gallegos, we want to thank you very much for your interest in making application to the commission and taking the time to interview with us today and thoughtfully answer our questions. So what will happen is at the end of this meeting, we will do our scores, and our executive director, Jeremy Ferris, will add them all up. And so he will contact you with regard to what the decision is. But in any case, we really appreciate your interest in ethics and your interest in the commission.
Well, again, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope to hear back from you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Good morning, Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Welcome to this special meeting of the New Mexico State Ethics Commission. And thank you very much for applying for this position on the commission. What we're going to do today is we have the 4 members of the commission that are going to make this decision. And we have 5 questions that we'd like to ask you. So we will go one by one, and I have the honor of being able to ask 2 questions.
Okay.
The first question is sort of a preliminary question. Can you please describe your professional background and how it has prepared you for a role on the State Ethics Commission?
Well, I've been involved with tribal government for most of my career. And very early on, one of the positions that I held was related to the All Indian Public Council, which was based out of Albuquerque. And so very early on, I had that experience in working with the tribal government and working with the Pueblos here in New Mexico. And I consider myself an expert in tribal government. And I'm very fortunate to have that career that I've had in working with tribal government, learning the ins and outs of the different tribes here in the state, the different Pueblos here in the state. And there's 19, as some of you may know, each Pueblo with its own rules and regulations, their own self-government rules and so forth. So it's something that has shaped my into what I am today as far as working in the area of tribal government. And I think that as far as my experiences and with the different through the years with the different tribes that I worked with has shaped my my perspective and how I view different issues, different and developing positions for the tribal leadership that I work with. And I've also been in tribal leadership positions myself. So I not only carry my background as far as a career in working with tribal government, but I've also had participate in leadership positions as well, from being governor of my own pueblo to serving with the All Indian Pueblo Council that I mentioned earlier, which is now referred to as the All Pueblo Governors Council. I think it's what it's called now, and other national organizations such as the National Congress of American Indians. I served as the first vice president of that organization and as president of that organization as well. I was the first Pueblo person to serve in that capacity, and I was also the youngest at that time when I was elected. I like to say that when people ask me when were you elected to that position, I tell them, so well, when my hair was black. So that was many years ago, and it was actually in 1987. So, but just to get back to the specifics of the question, when I left graduate school, I took on a position as an economic development specialist and with the 8 Northern Pueblos Council. And soon after that, I was elected as Secretary Treasurer of the All Indian Pueblo Council. At that time, we had a very prominent tribal leader at the helm of the All Indian Pueblo Council. He was very well respected. He was very well known, and I guess there was a sense of entitlement that he felt, meaning that he did so much for the Pueblo people, up to that time, that his sense of ethics kind of began to he compromised himself, and he began to outright steal from different entities that he oversaw, such as the Santa Fe Indian School and other entities, which many tribal leaders at the time did not wish to. I guess they wanted to turn their back on it, and but me, as a very young tribal leader at the time, I felt it was very necessary to bring this to the forefront because of what he was doing, and a lot of people were very they warned me. They said, well, tread very cautiously because of this person's prominence, and but to make a long story short, he was indicted by the United States government for theft, and he's no longer with us in this world. But he was never convicted of any crimes or anything like that, because it was just something that he felt I don't know what it was, but he just drank himself to death, and he's back in the 80s, and he was never brought to trial, and that was something that I don't like to brag about, and I never, I very seldom bring it up, but I think given the subject matter of this commission, and it's something that I felt that it was very important to to bring forward, as far as my something that formulated my view of tribal government early on, and that I carry to this day, that it's something that if you're going to work for tribal people and the communities, it's very important to be to hold yourself accountable. And, this individual felt that, that didn't pertain to him because of what, everything that he had done to that time, for tribal people, which was something that was very well recognized, and to this day he's thanked for. So I myself, we were fortunate to have that person, but again, he just went on a wrong path there. So as far as the Ethics Commission is concerned, and tribal government, I think there is a parallel here. In tribal government, you work for the people. You must have the people's interests in your heart, and if you don't, then you have no business in working in tribal government. And a lot of tribes, sometimes, they're some individuals that are appointed to or hold different leadership positions compromise themselves by allowing themselves to be to go down the wrong path, and so it's important to have individuals who can steer everybody in the right direction.
Thank you. Our second question is going to be posed by Commissioner Villanueva.
Good morning, Mr. Gonzalez. Thank you so much for that very interesting summary of your background. Please tell us what motivates you to serve on the State Ethics Commission.
Well, I never really thought of it, and then I was approached by I believe I got a call, and I was Conor Aquino, I guess, had mentioned my name as a possible candidate, and being a Native Republican in New Mexico, I guess we're kind of scarce, so he probably had to go through his Rolodex and to find Republican Native person, and he probably came to Native NR in his Rolodex and found, oh, John Gonzalez, yeah, I remember him. He's a Republican, Native Republican. I know Ron Sullivan is who's a current member, is also in that small group here in New Mexico. But I think that as far as serving on this commission, I feel it's a valuable tool for people to have, or entities to have available to them, because who else are they going to get to have their voice heard, in matters that they feel need to be brought or need to be addressed. And when they feel there's people that perhaps maybe are ethically challenged, and perhaps they see wrongdoing or things that need to be addressed or investigated or looked into a little bit further. So that's why the more I looked into what the commission's mission is, and the individuals who have served, I find it very interesting, and would like very much to be to serve on the commission, and if I am selected. So that's something that hopefully will come to fruition here.
Thank you for your response.
And our third question is going to be posed by Commissioner Bluestone.
Thank you also, Mr. Gonzalez, for applying. Your background is certainly impressive. We appreciate your interest. In some ways, you've already answered a question I was going to ask, but this might give you an opportunity to give another example. My question was if you could describe an ethical dilemma that you faced in your career and how you handled it. And I know your earlier example is a perfect response to that, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to add in terms of ethical dilemmas you may have faced over your years of service.
Well, fortunately for me, I haven't faced all that many. And, is that indicative of tribal government in general, or what I've come in contact with or worked, people that I worked with. I did serve in the State Fair Commission back with Governor Carruthers, and I thoroughly enjoyed that time in the commission. And we've had some matters that had to be addressed back then. Not anything major that involved any government investigative authorities, but there were some challenges back then. Through the years, as recently as the pandemic, I've encountered individuals who attempted to bribe me, because they were wanting to sell, the personnel protective equipment, and they were looking to make a fast buck off tribes, and suggesting that their Christmas bonus would be a little less this year because they would have to be shared with with myself. And I just kind of looked at them, and this person was a friend, and I told him, "So, are you kidding me? I mean, what are you actually doing this? And, I can't believe you're actually, think that I would fall to, for something like this." And told him just to get out of my office. And, needless to say, we're not very good friends anymore. And, I did mention it to the governor of our Pueblo at the time, and, told him that this, you need to know this. And in the event that, this individual approaches you, and then lo and behold, this person kind of resurfaces again, with this, a couple of weeks ago, and some other business interests with the Pueblo. And I immediately told our current governor, so, well, you need to be aware of this and be aware of this individual. And this is what he did several years back when, during the, when the pandemic was in full force. So, it's, but again, I don't have very many dilemmas to, that I've experienced, which is, is a good thing, but it's not necessarily that I've turned my back on any issues that I felt needed to be addressed. It's the major ones that, are that have, formed, my or contributed to the person that I am today, as far as, being a person of integrity, and, making sure that other individuals are accountable. And that's very important.
Thank you for sharing all that, Mr.
The fourth question is my question too, and it's a fairly long question with parts, so I'm going to try to get it out clearly. What do you believe are the core principles of ethical behavior in public service, and how do you view the relationship between those core principles and the law the commission is charged to interpret and enforce?
Well, I could have Googled that question and come up with a list of core principles. But one thing that I didn't need to do that, because one thing that is very important to me that other individuals should always keep in their mind, their hearts, and their interactions with, when the public good is in your hands, is being, having high integrity. That is very important when you're dealing with the public, and in my case, the tribal public, and how we interact with external entities, local governments, the county, the state, the feds, all the levels of government that we interact with. It's very important to have a sense of integrity, so that what you're putting forth is a voice that these entities can believe in. It's very important to build trust with no matter who it is that you're dealing with, and whether it's a one person coming before you, a tribal member who has an issue, You know, from, oh, my neighbor's dog is coming into our yard, being threatening, to dealing with the Los Alamos National Laboratory and some of the legacy waste that we're dealing with here at San Luis Alonso Pueblo. You know, if you come across as being a person of that you can you know, be trustful and person that is one of integrity, I think that's, you know, that comes across, and that goes a long way as far as you know, dealing with issues of ethical behavior. That's very important. You know, core principles. You know, I can cite other things, but I think, as I mentioned, integrity is very important, and trust, and being transparent, being accountable. Those are all very important things for a public servant or any person that deals with the public, no matter what public it is, whether it's tribal public or the New Mexico, you know, public. As far as the other part of the question, you know, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't profess to be, and I know lawyers are on the commission and on the staff, and some of you maybe have that as your background. I consider you know, the legal profession and those who have been in the profession for you know, their lifetime and chose that as a profession, as a resource to a lot of public officials, and how they use that resource is very important, and it guides them in making sound decisions, whether it's a decision that is that comes from the commission, or a decision at the tribal council level, or at the county council level, or at the state legislative level. It's, you know, they provide some very important guidance to individuals who are in positions of trust, who are in positions of you know, who make very important decisions on, and you know, their decisions impact people's lives, and that's very important, that you have all those resources available to you. So you know, do I, you know, have the knowledge of the intricacies of the ethics commission and what your you know, what your you know, the duty is as far as upholding the law? No, and you know, I'll be honest with you, because I haven't taken upon myself to study what that part of the New Mexico Constitution says about the ethics commission. So you know, if you want another, you know, lawyer to, you know, to serve on your commission, you know, to you know, to give you that perspective, well, you know, I saw the list of people that were being considered, and you know, they certainly have some impressive background and credentials, and that's very, you know, that's very impressive, and to me, and for me to be considered along with the group of people that you're interviewing for the, you know, to serve on the commission, I'm flattered to be considered and to be you know, part of that group.
Thank you. And now we've come to our last question, and Commissioner McMillan will ask the last question.
Mr. Gonzalez, thank you for your application. It's very important that the Ethics Commission conduct itself in a nonpartisan fashion and be viewed by the public as having done so. You would be filling a Republican vacancy on the commission. What steps would you need to take to remain unbiased in your service on the commission?
Well, as we talked here today, I've mentioned a couple things. One, transparency. Another, being accountable. Another one, being a person of integrity. You know, when you're dealing with the public, it's very important to build trust. And you know, how do you do that? Well, you know, you build a perception of that takes into account all of those things I just mentioned, that people can come to you and say, well, this person is going to give me a fair shake. This person is going to listen to me. This person is going to listen to all sides of the story. And, you know, to me, that's very important, to have that persona, to have that, you know, view that people view you as. So that's very important. You know, I think it's safe to say that when, you know, you are dealing with matters of the commission or any body, you know, there's some issues that come before you that perhaps maybe you need to disclose to your colleagues that, hey, maybe I know this person, you need to know this, or I have an interest in this particular matter, you need to disclose that. So it's important to make sure that you share with your colleagues, you know, exactly what your background is, what your interests are, and perhaps maybe whoever is coming before the commission. I know this person, but when it comes to, you know, party politics, you know, that's, you know, I don't see that as being something that's very, you know, something that you routinely deal with there at the commission. But maybe I'm wrong, but that's something that I feel very confident that I could put aside and address the issues that come before the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. And we want to thank you for your interest in being on the commission and taking the time to be interviewed today and thoughtfully answer our questions. After the meeting is over, we have a score sheet and we'll do the scores on the interviewees, and our executive director, Jeremy Ferris, will go ahead and contact you. And again, thank you. Thank you for your interest and for the interview.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, sir. Please.
Yes.
Sure.
Sure.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
I guess it is afternoon now.
I'm David Flores.
Welcome, Mr. Flores. We appreciate your time and coming here today and to interview with us. The way we're going to do it, there's 4 commissioners that make the decision as to who the Republican commissioner will be. And the 4 of us have 5 questions. So each one will ask 1 question and I get to ask 2. And you give us your responses. And so we'll start with my first question. Can you please describe your professional background and how it has prepared you for the role of State Ethics Commission?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to come, and I appreciate it. My professional, over the years, I have been in public sector, the private sector, and in all of those, you know, I've served on a number of boards, governance boards, and in a volunteer basis. And I believe that has helped me to understand ethics, a greater understanding of ethics and how it affects the community. I have worked with government agencies. I have been part of, as a procurement officer, I have to understand the procurement codes, exactly how, you know, what it looks like. Also, as a public employee, I was part of the employee council. So part of the duty of the employee council as a governing board was to negotiate or attempt to negotiate wages, employee benefits, as well as leave, not only with just hourly employees, but also unionized. So over the years, I have had numerous opportunities to be involved in a number of things. So that would be my answer to that question.
Okay, thank you. The second question is going to be posed by Commissioner Villanueva.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Can you see
You,
me?
you may have to put your seat back or something, the way this is set up. Yeah, can you see now?
I can see you.
Okay, good.
I don't know if you can see me.
I can't, well, I see the back of you,
You're not, that's the best
but
part.
I can hear you. Would you please share with us what motivates you to serve on the State Ethics Commission?
Motivates me to serve. I honestly, I grew up in a home of where service was, I don't want to state it, but it was, I believe that it was modeled. My dad was a veteran. Brother served in the service. My son served in the service. So public service is something that has been modeled to me. I have been involved in a number of boards. So that's what motivates me. What motivates me to be part of this organization is I believe that we, the people, should be involved in the process. That's what motivates me to be.
Thank you so much.
Let me state.
No, I think well, if whatever you want to do is fine, but I think, yeah. The third question is going to be posed by Commissioner Blustow.
Good morning or good afternoon again. And thank you for applying, and your interest, your background, your service. Very impressive. My question has to do with if you could describe for us a time when you faced an ethical dilemma in your profession and how you handled it.
Over time, there has been a number of ethical situations that have arose. I think one that comes to mind, probably dealing with tribal entity. I owned a business. And as part of that business, we provided fence materials, and we also installed fencing. And there was an opportunity for a housing unit, several houses that were going to be built on a reservation. And the individual that was soliciting bids and getting information, putting this together, had also wanted a price for a fence to be built at his personal residence. And it was implied that that was to be included in the total price. It was implied, there was an innuendo. And so how I handled it is I just asked him to tell me exactly what he wanted. Because I did not want to be, I wanted to be clear. I wanted him to tell me, what I want you to do is build this fence for me and put the price in the bid. And he said numerous times, this individual had said numerous times, there's a lot of business coming and I'm going to make sure that you get it. And when you're a small business starting, that is very, it sounds good. And, but I asked him, I said, I want to know exactly what it is that you're expecting me to do, because I want to know on the front end. And so he did tell me what he wanted me to do was include the total price of the fence that was going to be constructed in his residence into the bid. And then at that point, I told him would not do it. I also told him that I would not be doing business with that organization any longer. And so detrimental to, because I had already had ordered quite a bit of material, about $28,000 worth of material that I had not received a PO for. And I ended up having, as a small business, ended up having to basically eat that. that was how I handled the situation.
Thank you for sharing that, sir.
Yes, now we're on to question number 4, which is a question that that I'm going to read because it's got several parts to it. What do you believe are the core principles of ethical behavior in public service? And how do you view the relationship between those core principles and the law the commission is charged to interpret and enforce?
Well, there's a lot there.
Yes.
So I may ask you to
If you want me to repeat part of it,
repeat
sure.
it or
Yeah.
add to it, I think. So number one, well, could you repeat it for me, please?
Sure. The first part is, what do you believe are the core principles of ethical behavior in public service? And how do you view the relationship between those core principles and the law the commission is charged to interpret and enforce?
Well, number one, I think core principle is that we always, and I'm not just public officials, but I'm just saying humans in general, that we should always do things correctly, that we should always do right. And so the core principle is, what is the right thing to do? A lot of times, I think that sometimes we mince between, is it legal? And if it's legal, should we do it? And can we do it? Or should we do it? And I think the core principle is to have that understanding that while it may be legal, it may not be lawful. And always to look at that core principle. I think that's number one. I think another, not only knowing what should be done, also the appearance. I think that we as individuals, as public servants, as business owners, that we should also look at the appearance. And if it appears to be wrong, it could be wrong. And I think that in dealing with ethics, I honestly believe that the appearance number is just as important as the actual principle, as far as I'm concerned. I may have that completely wrong, and but I've tried to live that way. I've tried to live that way. In relationship to the law, I think that it's fortunate or unfortunate that the law and the interpretation of the law can be, it's a slippery slope. And the law tells me that I have to drive 55, and I don't always drive 55. It doesn't make the law wrong or the law right. It just makes us really understand. And every time I drive past that speed limit sign, I know that I am doing right, or I know that I'm doing wrong. And so, and I think that just because I am in a hurry, or because what I'm doing I feel is more important than someone else, doesn't give me the right, or doesn't give them the right. So I think that there's that relationship, and we have to be able to get to a place where we can decipher and have an understanding of, you know what, this is the right thing to do.
Thank you. And now we come to our last question, and that's going to be posed by Commissioner McMillan.
Thank you for your application, Mr. Clovis. It's very important that the Ethics Commission conduct itself in a nonpartisan way, and that it be viewed that way. You would be filling a Republican vacancy on the commission. What steps would you take to ensure that you remain unbiased in your role on the commission?
I think the first step that I personally would take is I would remain anonymous. I think anonymity is a good thing. I think, and what I mean by that is not let people know. I know that it would be posted on the website, and I know that people, but sometimes, if people know, it's kind of the old adage, it's not what you know, but who you know. And I would want to, if selected to this great honor, I would want to be anonymous so that no one would try to, because people do try to influence. And so number one, I would be anonymous. Number two, I would, listen to the facts, not be swayed by the noise, so to speak. I think we hear a lot of noise and it sounds right, but we do have to be curious. I honestly believe that we have to be, as individuals, that we have to be curious and we have to be willing to dig into whatever the circumstance may be, and learn and be able to look at both sides. Because in these issues, there's two sides, and it's coming to the best. I believe with everything that I have is that, the responsibility of governance and government agencies is that all boats rise together, so that everybody is helped. And I think that in this situation where we're at now, where we've been for many years, one party over the other party, no one really working together to help everyone up. And I think that would be part of this process as a commissioner.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Flores, for coming here today. I mean, you drove all the way down from Aztec.
Yes.
Yes. Well, we appreciate the time in doing that, and your time in answering our questions today very thoughtfully. What's going to happen now is at the end of the meeting, we have a little score sheet, and our executive director, who's in the back of the room, Jeremy Ferris, will go ahead and tally the results, and then he will let you know. So that's what our procedure is now. So again, thank you very much for your interest and your application.
Well, and I just want to say thank you all for the effort that you guys do. I thank you guys for your service. I appreciate it, every one of you. I know that this is something that you put your time in and your effort in, and we value it and we need it. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Be safe and don't go too much over
Well,
55
yeah.
on your way
I'm
back.
gonna try not to. I'm gonna try not to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Oh, good
Good
afternoon. Same. I've lost track of time.
Well, we want to welcome you, regardless
Thank
of whether it's morning or afternoon. We thank you for your application, and we thank you for this interview. The way we do this is there are 4 members of the commission that will make the decision about a new member, a Republican member. And so what we've done is we have 5 questions, and we're going to split the questions up among us. So I will ask you the first question. Can you please describe your professional background and how it has prepared you for the role on the State Ethics Commission?
Thank you, Commissioner. As you can see from my CV that I submitted as part of my application, for the first 18 years of my career, I was an assistant district attorney. I was stationed in Carlsbad, New Mexico in the 5th Judicial District. And for the last 8 years of my government career, I was a district court judge sitting in the same district in the same county and location. I believe, based upon my review of the commission's obligations and powers that my experience in both of those positions has prepared me well for this. I've been tasked as an assistant district attorney with receiving complaints, making decisions about probable cause, prosecuting cases, presenting evidence to a jury or a judge, and arguing in those cases for a finding based upon a standard of proof. As an assistant district attorney, I was also tangentially involved in the appellate process. As a judge, you can imagine that my experience was different. I was not tasked with doing those things, but upholding certain due process rights for all litigants that came before me. And so, it was more along the lines of what a commissioner does. I understand, based upon my readings of what the commission is tasked with, they sit more in an appellate type review role. And as a district court judge, I did that on occasion, making decisions upon a record that had been made at a separate proceeding of which I was not a part, listening to argument and applying the facts that were found to the law that is applicable in the case, and coming to a conclusion and being able to support that conclusion. So throughout the almost 26 years of my career, I've been involved in proceedings much like what I believe the commission would be involved in. So I think that experience has prepared me well for a position as a commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second question is going to be posed by Commissioner Villanueva.
Good morning,
Hello.
Judge. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Commissioner. Good.
Your question is, what is the square root of 4,692? I'm just kidding, you know.
412?
Very close, very close. You win. My next question would be whether or not you miss Carlsbad, but I'm afraid you're going to say no.
I do miss a lot of aspects of Carlsbad. I miss the people. I miss a lot of things that I grew accustomed to there. Thank you for asking.
Good. Well, we miss you. Your question is this, would you kindly tell us what motivates you to serve on the State Ethics Commission?
As an assistant district attorney and as a judge, I was vested with a lot of power over people's lives. I took that power and those responsibilities very seriously. I was held not only by rules and laws that apply to all persons in those capacities, but by my employer as well, and by my own ethical standards to exercise those responsibilities and duties with the utmost respect for those who came before me or who I was prosecuting even. And so that has motivated me to become involved in this, to try to become involved in this process. I believe that all government officials, whether they be elected or appointed, should be held to the highest ethical standards in the exercise of those duties. We grant government officials a lot of authority over our lives. Whether people know it or not, every day government officials are making decisions that are going to impact their lives. Some not so much, but some on a very significant level. And if I can be involved in a process where we make sure that those government officials are exercising that immense power in the proper way, in a way that is compatible and complies with the ethical standards and the laws that we've implemented to guide their behavior, I want to be a part of that.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Now we go on to question number 3. And Commissioner Bluestone will go ahead and ask this question.
Again, thank you, Judge, for applying. Your background
you.
is certainly impressive. We appreciate your interest in serving.
Thank you, sir.
My question is, if you would please share with us an ethical dilemma that you have faced in your professional and how you handled it?
Thank you for the question. You know, I looked at the sample questions that could be asked, and this is one of them. So I thought long and hard about this. There are so many situations over the years that come to mind. This one popped out right away. As when I was a district attorney, very late in that career, some very good friends of mine, their son was murdered. And he was murdered at a home that was not too far from the home that I lived in with my family. I was awakened in the middle of the night by his mother, who was banging on my door. She was hysterical. She was, you know, obviously concerned about the whole situation. She had been kept away from the place where her son was at. And after that happened, the case came to our office. And the district attorney came to me and she told me, I want you to prosecute this case. She assigned the case to me. And I explained to her that that would not be a good decision, that, in my opinion, placed me in an ethical, an adverse ethical quandary. And I did not want to do that because first, you know, I may have had a personal interest. I did have a personal interest in the outcome of the litigation. And even if I could remain true to my ethical standards, which I believed I could, but even if I could, my concern was with what the public or particularly the person who was being prosecuted was going to think about my participation in the case. And so at what I believed at the time to be a very risky decision on my part, I told the district attorney that I was not going to do that. I asked for an ethical opinion, an ethics opinion, an advisory opinion about whether my conduct, if I took the case, would be violative of any ethical laws or obligations that I had as an attorney or as a prosecutor. The decision came back that it would not violate any laws or ethical rules, but I believe personally, because of my closeness to the family, that it would. And I didn't want to take a chance on that. I was especially mindful of the individual and his family who was being prosecuted for this, because they were going to perceive my participation in that in a way that was not intended by me. And so that was a very significant ethical dilemma that I had to face and that I did face. So
Thank you for sharing.
yes, sir. Thank you.
Judge, this next question is sort of difficult. It's got different parts. So I'm going to go ahead and read it, and I'm hoping I can read it clearly enough. What do you believe are the core principles of ethical behavior in public service? And how do you view the relationship between those core principles and the law the commission is charged to interpret and enforce?
Core principles, I believe, would be honesty, integrity, respect, transparency, accountability, competence. I think those are core ethical principles, not just for anyone in public service, but for everyone. I do my utmost to achieve those principles, not only in my professional life, but in my personal life. And I believe that looking at the laws over which the commission has jurisdiction, that all of those laws are based, if not on all of those principles, on most of them. And so I think in any ethical obligation, any ethical law, any law that requires disclosure of information is based upon those very principles. We want people to be honest. We want government to be transparent. We want government to be filled with integrity and base their decisions on those values. We want them to be accountable to the public, and we want them to be and exercise competence in all of their decisions. So I think that all of the, as I stated, all of the the laws over which the commission has jurisdiction are based upon those principles. And I think any ethical laws or obligations are based at their core on those very principles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last question is going to be posed by Commissioner McMillan.
Thank you for your application, Mr. Romero.
Thank you, sir.
It's very important that the commission conduct itself in a nonpartisan fashion and be viewed as doing so. You would be filling a Republican vacancy on the commission. Do you see any steps that you might need to take in order to remain unbiased in your role and be viewed in that way?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. As you know, judges are held to a similar standard. We were tasked with not engaging in any conduct that actually compromises the integrity and the impartiality of the judiciary, but from engaging in any conduct that even gives the appearance that we could affect the integrity and the impartiality of the judicial process. So I am a Republican. I've been a Republican since I was first able to vote. I remember voting in my first election after I graduated from high school. But I've not been heavily involved in politics, and I'm not heavily involved in politics. When I had to run for office as a district court judge, I prayed and prayed that I would not have an opponent, so I didn't have to engage in political activity because it's not something that is suitable to not suitable. That's not the right word. It's not something that I necessarily am involved in, desire to be involved in. I understand that to remain unbiased in these proceedings, I would need to restrict activities in certain organizations, maybe. Or restrict speech, restrict endorsements, restrict relationships. All of those things I had to do as a district court judge. There are many things that the public is looking at when you're given so much power. I was a judge in a very small community. I think the community averaged over the years approximately 30,000 people. And as a district attorney in that community and as a judge, everyone knew who I was. So these principles I had to comply with, even at a heightened standard, because I was always being looked at. My behavior was always going to be looked at. And I invited that because I like I said, I held myself to these high ethical principles. But to remain unbiased, I think I would have to ensure that I don't become involved in any activities that would or could affect my ability to remain fair and impartial in these proceedings, in the proceedings that are brought before the commission.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And we all want to thank you for your interest in making your application and in taking the time to be here today so we can interview, as well as for your thoughtful answers.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to say I wanted to apologize for my inability to be there in person today. I have obligations to clients today that I had to comply with, and I simply couldn't take the 6.5 to 7 hours out of my day to make the round trip. So I apologize, and I hope it doesn't convey anything about my desire or commitment to this process.
It doesn't. So, and we understand that sometimes there are other obligations. What's going to happen now is after we finish the interviews, the commission, we have a scorecard and we're going to rate the applicants. And our executive director, Jeremy Ferris, will go ahead and tally up the numbers. And then he will go ahead and call you and let you know what the score is, so to speak.
Okay.
So
well, thank you very much again.
Thank you very much,
Appreciate the
Judge
opportunity.
Romero.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ladies.
And welcome to the State Ethics Commission. This is a little sort of we have a quorum of members who are going to decide who the next Republican member is going to be for our commission. And we thank you very much for applying. We thank you for your interest, and thank you for being here today.
For having me.
What we're going to do is we have about 5 questions we're going to ask, and each one of the commissioners is going to ask a question, except me. I get to ask 2 questions. So we'll begin with my first question. Can you please describe your professional background and how it has prepared you for a role on the State Ethics Commission?
I have been practicing on and off 22 years. Graduated UNM Law School in Texas, passed the bar in Mexico, passed the Texas. I have various my own large law firm. In 2002, oil and gas. My resume looks a little bit some of the rest of it. One gas client of mine for New York City asked me to be private. I'd represent him for it. In 2004, we took it public. So I may not be the best qualified candidate here, but I may be the most uniquely qualified. My discussions with growth, here, there hasn't been a lawyer in Mexico ever. The public Securities and Exchange Commission. That kind of scrutiny. I was a senior vice president, general counsel, all of operating subsidiaries, and associate general. Kind of scrutiny. Tremendous. It was splattered all over issues. That kind of experience dealing with that kind of scrutiny. Publicly. In 2017, I reopened my office in Oswego. Didn't really want to build another big mess. No. I think those qualifications dealing with ethics, very high level of the public, probably makes me equally qualified for this kind of a position.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Our second question is going to be posed by Commissioner Villanueva, and she is on the screen. So you're going to have to move your chair back to see her.
And could you turn on your microphone? Is your microphone on?
Oh, that's probably better. I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
Didn't realize either.
Mr. Vickers, good morning. One of the things I noticed is when the interviewees pull their seat back, they move away from the microphone, and I struggle a little bit to hear your response. So at the same time you're looking back, can you not move so far away from the microphone?
Sure.
I'm not there to know how difficult that is, but I want to hear your response.
I don't want you to think that I'm taking a nap or
something. Oh, all right. Well, Mr. Vickers,
So,
Mr. Vickers, would you be so kind as to tell us what motivates you to serve as a state ethics commissioner?
well, once again, I think further to the previous answer to the question, I deal with ethical issues every day in law practice. I am in oil and gas, real estate, corporate, LLC, securities, finance, transaction. And I have to tell my clients every time I form an LLC for them. By the way, I was on the committee that helped write LLC statute. But I have to tell them
I don't represent you individually, I represent the entity. So if there's a dispute between two members or managers or shareholders or directors or officers, I can't represent one or the other. Represent the entity. So ethical conflicts in my practice occur on a regular basis. And I have to explain that to my clients so that they understand what my role is. I think there's a lot of general practitioners out there who don't understand that when you form a corporation, you represent the entity itself. You don't represent the individual, because that in and of itself is a conflict. So I think that will certainly helps me be qualified to serve on a commission like this that deals with ethical questions. Does that
Thank you
help?
so much for your response. Yes, thank you for your response.
Okay. Could you hear me well enough?
I could hear you rather well that time.
Okay. Well, I'm
Thank you.
trying to speak loud enough being that far away so that you could hear me.
Did a good job.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now you can come on up because
Now she gets to look at the back of my head.
Exactly.
Turning a little bit bald back here.
but as she says, she can hear you, and that's the important.
Well, and now that I'll try to soften my voice a little bit because I tend to speak somewhat loudly.
Well, it's good to hear you. That's the important thing. All right, third question is going to be posed by Commissioner Bluestone.
Thank you. Thank you again for applying, Mr.
Thank you for
Background.
letting me.
Impressive to see and appreciate your interest.
Sure.
You just referred in general to the ethical issues you face as advising clients that you're representing the entity and not representing the individual. But could you also give us an example of an ethical dilemma that you may have personally faced over the years in your career, how you handled it?
I'm sure there have been a lot of those, especially with a public company. There was a claim made against Warren Resources, Inc. That's the company that we took public. And this is probably one of the best examples I can give. I've had other ones where, somebody didn't pay the right amount of money, or somebody paid too much money, or, that old joke, they paid me $200 in cash and they owe me $100. The question is, do I tell my partner? And that was a joke that we've always had in the law business, but it's a joke. There was a claim made against Warren Resources, Inc. with regard to some of our oil and gas operations in California. We thought that it was a bogus claim, but as a public company, you have to take that stuff seriously. And the claim had to do with some of the operations that had taken place, and it was directed. And as you can, I'm sure, well imagine, in the state of California, the plaintiffs named everybody they could think of individually, as well as the corporation itself. So because of all, and I was an in-house attorney, and we had another in-house attorney, and I was a corporate executive, senior vice president. So the difficulty was I named the board of directors. And so everybody's asking me, what do we do? And we did have another lawyer on staff. And I said, okay, we're about to spend a tremendous amount of money defending what is going to be what I think is a frivolous claim, but we have no choice. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, the board of directors is going to have to hire a lawyer to represent it. I'm saying that the corporation needs to hire outside counsel with us also as in-house counsel representing the entity itself. And all of the executive management team, the officers, the president, CEO, myself, CFO, hired our own lawyer to represent the officers. So if you have that many, that's about as many conflicts as you can put together in one particular situation, because there could have been an adverse claim against directors that wouldn't affect officers and vice versa. Or the company that if the board of directors or the group of directors or a director was held liable, that could impact the relationship with the company, the director, who might happen to be an officer, So it was just a quagmire. And the only way that I could figure out how to resolve it is make sure that we had 4 separate law firms representing the company and its management. So that's how I resolved that one.
Thank you.
I hope that answers your question. Some of them kind of esoteric. I can't give names other
I
than,
understand.
you know, the public company, because it's splattered all over the SEC's website. So that's, you know, I can talk about that, but I can't talk about my clients.
I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
And I have the 4th question.
Okay.
And it's at least 2 parts. What do you believe are the core principles of ethical behavior in public service? And how do you view the relationship between those core principles and the law the commission is charged to interpret and enforce?
Okay. Let me start the answer to that question by saying I like to sleep at night. I consider myself a very ethical lawyer. I think that the discussion between earlier with regard to representing the corporation instead of the shareholders and directors individually kind of tells you that. I think the core values of ethics, and those of us who are lawyers have a high degree of ethical standards. I don't even like the appearance of impropriety, but truthfulness, honesty, good character, and a variety of those kinds of attributes are what I consider the core principles of ethics in general, specifically ethics for lawyers. And I think that plays into and should play into, I believe this commission is responsible for overseeing 7 laws, including all of the 7. I haven't gone through everything and read all of the laws that this commission is in charge of dealing with. But I think those principles play heavily in what this commission is supposed to do and what its purpose is. So I hope that answers that question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And now we come to our last question. And this question is going to be posed by Commissioner McMillan.
Thank you for your application, Vickers.
Certainly.
It's very important that the Ethics Commission conduct itself in a nonpartisan way and that it be viewed as doing that. You will be filling a Republican vacancy on the commission. What steps might you need to take to ensure that you are unbiased in your role on the board and viewed in that way?
Well, let me start the answer to that question this way. I am fiscally conservative and socially moderate. I believe in the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, believe in the ACLU. I am not, well, I was nominated by a Republican city attorney and our mayor in Roswell is a Democrat. I could be considered a conservative Democrat or a moderate Republican. I happen to be a member of the Republican Party, but quite frankly, I'm not necessarily too happy about the way the Republican Party is handling itself lately, but that's a separate decision. So I'm pretty much in the middle of the road. I don't think that I represent Republicans. I represent Democrats. I represent independents. I'm a business lawyer. I'm a transaction lawyer. I form people's businesses for them. I help them sell their assets. I've got an asset sale to client here in Santa Fe, a business that I'm representing on a sale that we have to close next week. And they happen to be Democrats. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican, an independent. I don't really care whether you're pink and purple stripes with green dots on you. To me, people are people. And I don't impose in my law practice a personal view on my clients. And I don't impose a personal view on people in public. I don't think, I don't think it's my job to judge. You know, there's a religious saying with regard to that. Judge not lest you be judged. I just don't believe that it's going to factor in. I don't think being a member of the Republican Party is going to really make any difference in my case. But I can say this, if I did have some situation that I thought was difficult, I'd probably discuss that with commissioners and mention it and say, I'm not sure if I can handle this matter. Obviously, if there's conflict, couldn't handle it. But I don't think there's gonna, I don't think there's gonna be an issue with respect to whether or not a political party is one thing or the other, because I'm really just not. I probably should be an independent. Let me answer your question that way. So I don't think that being a Republican is going to make a difference at all.
Thank you.
Does that
Thank you.
answer that?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I want to thank you. The whole commission wants to thank you for your interest, for making application for this position, and for taking the time to come here today, because you came all the way from Roswell.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
And that's fine. I was here last week for a seminar with the Rocky Mountain Mineral Law Foundation. It was about half of the week at the convention center. So I love coming to Santa Fe.
well, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for thoughtfully answering questions. And what's going to happen now is you are our last applicant. So now we will fill out our scorecards, and our executive director, Jeremy Ferris, will add up the scores, and then he will let everyone know who ended up with number one.
Okay.
So that's what our process is now. And again, thank you very much.
It's
for
been
your
my
application.
pleasure. And hopefully I can help. Do I stay in here? Do I go outside? I mean, my wife's outside. I mean, I don't mind. If you tell me I don't, if you tell me I'm not it,
Well, now
then that's what the decision.
Yeah. Well, we've got to do our scorecards first.
Sure. Understand. I'll just have her come in and we'll sit back here in the back. That's okay.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Did you get Judy to email you or something? Take it up there, please.
And I'd just like to say I was very impressed with all the applicants.
we allowed to talk right now?
Yes.
I just
Yes.
wanted to say what a wonderful job you did, Celia, and I want to thank you so much for chairing this interview process. You did a great job.
Well, thank you. It was sort of a surprise, but it's easy. It's very easy to chair with you all, as the commission.
Well, it comes
So-
naturally, you judge.
Well,
Now, Celia, I'm going to have to ask you, what motivates you to be the chair?
for those that are still at the meeting, the commission has selected Justice Klingman.
Sure.
We're now adjourned.